My heart pounded like a war drum as I stared at the phone screen in disbelief, its cold message slicing through the fragile calm of our morning. "I'm leaving you, and I already sold the house," it read, punctuated by a laugh that still echoes in my ears. In that searing moment, every tender dream we'd built together, the cozy home, the shared memories, the whispered promises, crumbled into bitter ash. I had canceled the luxury trip he'd planned, a final act of defiance against his incessant demands, and now his rage had exploded into violence. But what he never saw coming was the spark this betrayal ignited within me, a spark that would soon transform my pain into a fierce, unyielding resolve to reclaim my life. I still remember how our mornings used to be. In the early light of dawn, we'd sit together at our kitchen table, sharing freshly brewed coffee and light conversation. Those were the days before the cracks appeared, a time when love felt uncomplicated and every shared smile was a promise of tomorrow. We had built our home, brick by painstaking brick, through mutual sacrifice and dreams of a comfortable future. I had always believed that our partnership was founded on trust and respect, even when disagreements arose. But over time, a subtle power struggle began to overshadow the warmth between us. My husband, Daniel, increasingly insisted on controlling every facet of our life, from finances to vacation plans, dismissing my opinions as frivolous. When I finally mustered the courage to cancel the extravagant European trip he had meticulously planned, hoping to save us from mounting debt and questionable investments, I never imagined it would shatter our fragile peace. That fateful morning began innocently enough. I had been carefully reviewing our monthly budget on my laptop, my mind focused on ensuring that our limited resources were allocated wisely. Daniel had burst into the kitchen, brimming with excitement about the upcoming trip, a trip he promised would be the pinnacle of our lives, a chance to escape the mundanity of our routine and bask in luxury under foreign skies. I had tried to gently remind him of our financial reality, of the unsustainable extravagance that threatened our future. "I'm sorry, Daniel," I had said softly, "but we can't afford this trip right now." I had expected a heated argument, maybe even a tearful discussion, but what followed was far worse. In a flash of fury, his face twisted into something unrecognizable, and before I could even react, he swung his arm and hit me, right there in our quiet kitchen. The searing pain of hot coffee mixed with the physical blow as I was drenched in its bitter liquid. I remember the shock, the humiliation of being physically attacked in front of our home, and the echo of his mocking laugh that followed his violent outburst. In that moment, everything changed. I stumbled back, heart racing, tears streaming down my face, as I tried to understand how the man I loved could reduce our marriage to such brutality. The silence that followed was deafening, a void where trust once resided. I retreated to our bedroom, my mind reeling with a mix of physical pain and emotional devastation. I knew that this was not just an isolated act of violence, but the culmination of years of small resentments and unchecked power plays. Daniel's controlling nature had escalated to a point where even a simple refusal had provoked him into crossing a line that I now knew I could no longer ignore. For days, I grappled with the aftermath of that violent morning. I sat in my living room, nursing bruises both visible and hidden, trying desperately to piece together the shattered fragments of my self-worth. I found solace in the small routines of daily life, walking in the park, reading in a quiet corner of a local cafe, but nothing could erase the memory of that fateful breakfast. I called a trusted friend, Marissa, who had always been my confidant. Over late-night calls filled with trembling voices and shared tears, she urged me to seek help, to consider leaving a situation that was clearly toxic. "You deserve to be safe," she reminded me, her words gentle yet insistent. "No one has the right to hurt you, physically or emotionally." Her encouragement, though it brought a flicker of hope, also forced me to confront a painful truth. I had been living in fear, compromising my own needs to appease someone who cared more about his whims than my well-being. That evening, I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment, the city's distant hum a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, eyes red, face bruised, and felt a surge of determination. I knew that if I were to reclaim my life, I needed to stand up not only for my own safety but for the dignity that had been stripped away by Daniel's cruelty. I made a decision: I would leave. I wouldn't wait for another outburst, another moment of humiliation. I gathered my essentials, packed a small bag, and left the apartment that night, not with anger, but with a resolve to rebuild my future on my own terms. In the following weeks, I sought refuge at a friend's place, a temporary sanctuary where I could begin to heal. I filed a report with the police about the incident, and I also sought legal counsel regarding my options for a restraining order and divorce. My attorney, Ms. Rodriguez, was a woman of quiet strength who listened intently as I recounted every painful detail. "You have every right to protect yourself," she said firmly. "What he did is unacceptable, and we will pursue every legal avenue to ensure your safety and to hold him accountable." Her words bolstered my resolve, and I began to take control of the situation that had once felt so overwhelming. I also started therapy where Dr. Simmons helped me process the avalanche of emotions, the shock, the betrayal, the deep-seated hurt, and slowly I began to understand that the violence I experienced was not a reflection of my worth. In our sessions, I learned to navigate the complex emotions of leaving a relationship, of reclaiming my independence, and of rebuilding my identity after being so violently undermined. It was a long, arduous process, and there were days when the memories of that breakfast, the sting of hot coffee, and the echo of his mocking laugh would flood back with almost unbearable intensity. But gradually I began to see that the path to healing was not linear, and that every step I took toward reclaiming my self-respect was a victory in itself. During this time, I also began to reflect on the dynamics of our relationship. I thought back to all the moments when Daniel's controlling nature had crept in, his insistence on managing our finances, his subtle criticisms that I was not assertive enough, his frequent reminders of his role as the provider. I realized that these were not isolated incidents, but part of a pattern that had escalated to physical violence when I had dared to assert my independence by refusing to give him access to my credit card. It was a painful awakening to the fact that I had allowed his behavior to go unchecked, perhaps out of a misguided hope that love would eventually overcome control and abuse. Empowered by this new understanding, I decided that I would not let his betrayal define the rest of my life. I began to forge a new path, a path that involved reclaiming my financial independence, investing in my future, and rediscovering the passions that had once brought me joy. I enrolled in courses to enhance my skills as a graphic designer, attended workshops on entrepreneurship, and even started freelancing for small businesses. Each new project, each paycheck, was a small act of defiance. A reminder that I was capable of building a life without him, that I could create something beautiful out of the ruins of our shattered marriage. Slowly, as the weeks turned into months, I began to rebuild not just my career, but also my self-confidence. I moved into a small apartment that I could call my own, a place decorated with simple touches that reflected my newfound independence. I reconnected with old friends, forging deeper bonds with those who had always supported me, and I even found solace in joining a local support group for survivors of domestic violence. In those meetings I heard stories that mirrored my own, a tapestry of pain, betrayal, and ultimately hope. Each shared experience reinforced the idea that I was not alone, that many had faced the darkness and emerged stronger on the other side. One particularly transformative moment came during a session with Dr. Simmons. "Remember," she said gently, "the strength you feel now is born from the pain you've endured. It is a testament to your resilience. You are not defined by the violence you experienced, but by your ability to rise above it." Those words resonated with me deeply, and I began to see that the scars on my body and in my heart were not signs of weakness, but symbols of survival, a map of the battles I had fought and won. As I continued to rebuild my life, I also kept a journal, a detailed account of my journey from the day of that devastating breakfast to the slow, painful process of healing. In my journal, I wrote about the physical pain of the hit, the shock of the betrayal, the long nights spent questioning my self-worth, and the gradual return of hope as I took control of my destiny. My writing became a mirror that reflected both my darkest moments and my brightest victories, a testament to the fact that even in the face of brutal betrayal, one can find the strength to reclaim one's life. In time, I made the difficult decision to pursue a divorce. With Ms. Rodriguez by my side, I filed the necessary papers and, with each signature, felt a small piece of my heart mend. The divorce was not a sudden escape from pain, but a gradual severance of the ties that had bound me to a man who had proven himself unworthy of my love and trust. It was a legal and emotional process fraught with tears, angry confrontations, and moments of deep sorrow, but also with a growing sense of liberation. I began to see that by walking away I was not giving up on love. I was choosing to honor myself, to protect my dignity, and to build a future free from violence and betrayal. The court hearings were long and emotionally draining. I had to recount, in painful detail, the moment that had changed everything: the hit, the cold laughter, the finality of his words. In the courtroom I felt exposed and vulnerable, but I also felt empowered by the fact that I was no longer silenced by fear. The judge, a compassionate yet firm woman, listened intently as I testified about the abuse I had suffered and the breach of trust that had irreparably damaged our marriage. When the verdict finally came, granting me the relief and protection I had long sought, I felt a surge of triumph. It was not a moment of complete closure, for the scars would always remain, but it was a clear message that I was not a victim to be dismissed, but a survivor who deserved justice and a chance at a new beginning. In the aftermath of the divorce, I dedicated myself to healing and to rebuilding a life that was entirely my own. I transformed my apartment into a sanctuary, filled with the soft glow of warm lights, comfortable furniture, and mementos that reminded me of the strength I had discovered in my darkest hours. I resumed my work as a freelance graphic designer with renewed passion, taking on projects that allowed me to express my creativity and assert my independence. Each new client, each piece of art I created, was a testament to my resilience, a declaration that I was capable of rising above the cruelty of the past. I also reconnected with my support network, spending time with friends who had always believed in me and attending therapy sessions that helped me navigate the labyrinth of emotions that followed the abuse. In those sessions, I learned to forgive not for his sake but for my own, to let go of the chains of bitterness that threatened to hold me back. Forgiveness, I came to understand, was not about excusing his actions, but about freeing myself from the weight of that pain so I could move forward unencumbered. A turning point came one crisp spring day when I decided to share my story publicly. I started a blog, pouring out every raw detail, from the shocking breakfast where Daniel had hit me to the long, painful months of rebuilding my life after his betrayal. The response was overwhelming. Readers from all over reached out with messages of support and shared their own stories of abuse and recovery. In that moment, I realized that my experience, as harrowing as it was, could serve as a beacon of hope for others. I was not alone, and my pain could be transformed into a powerful force for change. As the years passed, I built a life defined by strength, independence, and a quiet resilience that no one could take away. I continued to excel in my career, expanding my portfolio and even collaborating with renowned brands. I traveled to new cities, made new friends, and discovered that the world was full of opportunities that I had once thought were beyond my reach. Each achievement was a victory over the darkness of that abusive past, a reminder that I had reclaimed my power and reshaped my destiny. There were still moments of vulnerability, days when the memory of that brutal breakfast would surge unexpectedly, and I would feel a pang of pain so sharp it took my breath away. But those moments became fewer and far between, replaced by a steady, enduring sense of self-worth. I learned that while scars never fully disappear, they can become symbols of survival, reminders that I had endured and emerged stronger. I now approach life with a cautious optimism, aware of my own strength and unafraid to set boundaries that protect my well-being. Looking back on everything, I realized that Daniel's cruelty, as horrific as it was, forced me to confront truths about myself that I had long ignored. It taught me that love is not about submission or compromise of your self-worth, but about mutual respect and trust, qualities that I now hold dear. I have learned to value my own needs above the toxic expectations of others and to seek relationships built on kindness, honesty, and compassion. The journey from that painful moment in the kitchen to the life I now lead was not easy. It was paved with tears, anger, and long, dark nights. Yet each step forward was a victory, a testament to the indomitable strength of the human spirit. Today, as I sit in my sunlit office, my reflection in the window a reminder of the woman I have become, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for every hardship that shaped me. The memory of that morning, the shock of the coffee thrown, the betrayal in my husband's eyes, and the echo of his cruel laughter, will forever be a part of my past. But it no longer defines my future. I have reclaimed my dignity, rebuilt my life, and learned that true power lies in rising above abuse and forging a path that honors your own worth. This is my story, a tale of betrayal, abuse, and ultimately redemption. It is a story of how I transformed an act of violence into a catalyst for personal growth and self-empowerment. I refuse to let the darkness of that day overshadow the light I have found within myself. My journey continues, marked by every scar as a reminder of my resilience and every success as a testament to the strength that lies within. I am free, I am whole, and I will never again allow anyone to diminish my worth.